Hello and welcome again to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blank Gates. We are getting close to the end. I'm so excited. And in this last week, the last 7 days, and also the previous 3 days, we are going step by step, one at a time, through each checklist. And specifically, we are going through a similar process that I go through when I speak to people and I do my coaching effort. Now, basically, as a coach, you can think of it like a basketball coach. Okay, so the basketball coach is not playing in the game, and the basketball coach, in like to some extent, they're not actually participating in the drills. Like you don't have a basketball coach who's actually standing at the free throw line or doing layups or standing in the defense. Like sometimes they may jump on the court and say, "Look, I want you to do it like this," and usually they look kind of funny when they do it. Okay, so I'm actually quite tall. I played a lot of basketball when I was younger. And now for me, what I do, so it's similar to a basketball coach. A basketball coach is going to show you techniques and they're going to tell you about techniques and they're going to give different types of scenarios and they're going to ask you to walk through those scenarios. The point is that the scenarios are going to develop certain skills and strengths within you so that you will be able to perform once you get into the competition. It's the same with boxing. Okay, so I did basketball. I also did boxing. So in boxing, you have a coach. Now, actually, my coach, he actually did jump in the ring and started punching me one time, and it was terrible. It was. Yeah. I think, because I was actually in a boxing event. So, and it's called white collar boxing. So in Shanghai, they have this thing called white collar boxing. So if you are like an accountant or a lawyer or like you're in a white collar industry and you want to learn boxing, but you don't want to fight like a professional, you just want to like have fun with other guys, from the office or from another company, you can go to this event, mostly foreigners, and you can train for 3 to 6 months and then jump in the ring and then fight somebody. So I think they put my coach into the ring and just punched me in, like to see, can you handle it? Are you gonna like cry? Like what are you gonna look like when you jump into the competition? So that was a terrible experience. I haven't punched anyone yet, but sometimes I can be pushy in a coaching session. It depends on the situation. But in general, I just try to be nice and I'm interested in what you do at work and I want to hear all of your thoughts and I want to then present some kind of thinking structure. And these thinking structures are called checklists. There are 10 checklists and they come from the book Create Crucial Insight by Dr. Thomas Buchholz. Over the last 3 days, I was talking about 3 checklists that help you to understand some methods for how to motivate individuals, to specify what type of work they are supposed to be doing, and then what type of work they are actually doing, and then trying to figure out why aren't they achieving the results that you would like them to achieve, and then to implement, to begin to think about how to increase their ability to achieve those targets, and then implement some kind of plan in order to influence their behavior and then start to better achieve those plans. So we did that. Now there's another type of person. So that's mostly for managers. So if you're a manager, that process, go over those videos a couple times and I would be happy to work with you. Basically 3, maybe 4 hours we can create. Even in 1 hour, but like I would say if you had 3 or 4 hours, you could create a pretty good basis for making decisions about how you are going to develop your staff. At least one person. We could go through one person. So you could, with one person, we could go through State Drive, write down what you want them to do, write down what they're actually doing, and then each of the things that they need to be doing, we can discuss how to increase or decrease their levels of effort. We can talk about how to increase or decrease their ability to successfully achieve those things. Then we can build onto. So next to each of the things that they're supposed to do, and then all the ideas that we have about how they can increase their effort, and then also how to increase their success, then we can take the state styles checklist and put it on top, and then define like what is the style of work that you want them to be using for each of those instances, and how would you like them to change their style of work for each of those instances. And then we can go into the state purposes checklist and talk about specifically what are the purposes, the natural purposes that these people have, and how can each of these different things that you'd like them to do be motivated by their natural purposes, the natural things that they want. How do they align with the things that you want them to do? And then how can you also use other incentives to draw from those natural motivations in order to incentivize the desire or their ability to achieve the outcomes that you want them to achieve and that we've talked through. So I think, if we had 4 hours, we can definitely get through everything for one individual, for one staff member. We could probably do it faster. We could do it in probably 2 hours even. So, click the link below and you can order even 2 hours or 3 hours. It's not expensive. It'll give you a lot of tools. It'll give you a lot to think about. And hopefully it'll also give you a nice plan that you can start to implement with one staff member. And then once you've gone through the process yourself, see, the whole point is as you develop these skills, then you're going to be able to then use the same process with another employee and another employee. And then eventually it's like, I know how to do this. When I'm managing people, I go through this process. And then after I've been through this process with one employee, all of a sudden I'm able to manage more people. I'm getting better results from everybody. And then I'm moving up in my career. And then it's like a snowball effect. You're developing a skill. You're getting better, and then you can compete in the marketplace. Whew, not 7 minutes. Are we going to be able? Okay, so then now another category of checklists is called working with partners. All right, so generally when you're working with partners, all right, so recently I've used this checklist in a few different instances. One guy, he told me that he just got a new boss and he needs to talk to the new boss. And so we used this checklist in order to highlight what does he want, what's going on with him, what does the boss want, what's going on with the boss, and then who is the other group of people that this guy wants to work with, and how does the boss influence the relationship between him and these other people in the organization. Another instance was a gentleman who was thinking about possibly, he had a job interview with another company. And so we went through this checklist in order to understand and to highlight what does he want, what's going on with him, what's going on with the business, and then what's going to happen with the clients of that company. And then in another instant, we were talking about his company, and then how a service provider was going to provide services for his company, and then how he was going to use that service provider with one of their clients. All right, so you can see that what happens with this checklist is called state teamwork, is that you envision or you guide relationships between entities. All right, so in the first row, it's like the simple one. It just says like the name or description of the entity. So you write down your name, you write down maybe your boss or the person who's interviewing you or the company you'd like to work with, the service provider, you put the other company. Or if you're working together, so another gentleman, he was discussing his company, how his company and another company are creating kind of like a joint venture for a project and how they will be working together. So you just put the name of the one partner of the joint venture and then your company. So you can see, you just basically anytime there's 1 or 2 or 3 different people who want to work together, you just put those names. In the next row, you put the outcomes. All right, so what do you want from this project? What do they want from this project? What do you want while you're working with them? What do they want while working with you? What's the purpose of this project? And then next, you just talk about reuses. Now, of course, since we've talked about outcomes and reuses so much, eventually, like, you have to believe that, at some point you have to like understand what we're talking about. What's the difference? Okay. So maybe you want to earn fees and your provider, so you're a provider, you want to earn fees, and the company who you service, they want to contain costs. You want to make money, they don't want to pay too much money. So you have to like find a price that you can both handle. You want to provide something like a service or a product, therefore you want to satisfy the client, and they want to get that service, that appropriate service. That's the outcome. You can go down to reuses. Now, reuses over the long run, you want to have a reputation, a good reputation. You want to satisfy your client so that in the future, they will want more business from you. And your client wants that product or service so they can do something with it. All right, so this is that example, the hire a salesperson example from the book. Now, the specific examples with the people that I've worked with, how we've applied them specifically, I'll probably just leave that with their specific circumstances. I mean, maybe someday I'll have like enough experiences with so many different people that I'll find like some common experiences that a lot of companies are having, and then I can create some generic scenarios which people will identify with more. But right now, since I have a lot of different cases where we've used this checklist, but there's not so much overlap between these examples, I don't want to specify any specific examples. All right, so reuses. And of course, the company who's using that, yeah, right. So the company who takes the service or takes the product, they want to be able to use that product or service. Now, the next row, it's talking about how do you support each other. So as you're doing this deal, like what do you have to do for the client? What do they have to do for you? So in the book, like a staff search firm, if you have a staff search firm, like a headhunting company, then you have to be able to understand what the company, so there's a company that you need a new salesperson, you can provide them with appropriate people to fill that position. So you need to have some tools to hone your expectations. You need to understand exactly what they want. You have to have tools to understand the qualifications they're looking for. What is specifically is the job? What are they looking for? What are the different factors? Because as a search firm, you need to make sure that when you assess these qualified candidates, that they're going to take one of them. They're going to use your service. So you have to make sure that you're getting the person that they want. That's how you make the money. So you have to have some method in order to find and assess those candidates. And that's why they're paying an outside search firm, is because they could also do that, but you supposedly do that better. And they recognize that you do it better. Therefore, they want you to do it rather than them. And then, of course, they have to set the expectations. They have to make sure that you know exactly what they're looking for, and then they have to pay. If that part, where you support each other, if that part is done properly, then you're making money and they're getting the thing that they want. So that's very crucial to create insight in this regard. Now then also there's other actions, all right? So the next row is like other actions, okay? So what other things do you have to do as a search firm, as a headhunting company, in addition to that thing which you're doing? So you're working with them, but then also you're doing your everyday work. All right, so probably you're gonna call all your friends and be like, hey, yo, I got this project. I need to find this person. Do you got anybody? And then they look on some websites, what's going on here, and they call everybody they know, they search everywhere they can search, and they have a list of candidates. And what are some things that the company needs to do? All right, so the company, they need to prepare to onboard this new customer. They need to conduct some project to bring on board a successful candidate. All right, so let's go to the next row. So the next row, it says entity personas. Okay, so when you have a staff search firm, a headhunting company, you're going to have more than one guy. Now, maybe you only have one person working for you, or maybe it's your own company, only you are doing it, but basically you have three functions, according to this book. All right, so you have a job and market analyst, and what are they going to do? All right, so they're going to conduct research. You also have All right, so the first one is just basic analysis. The second one is someone who's going to search for prospective candidates. And the third person who is going to recommend the candidate. All right, so those are the functions. As a job search firm, you have to be able to analyze the job and the market. After you have a really good understanding of the job and market, you need to be able to search for the candidate. After you've found appropriate candidates, you need to be able to recommend candidates. All right? The client, the person who's purchasing this service, they need to have some experts about work and relationships the job needs to satisfy. Okay, so they need to know exactly who are we going to bring on board, what is that person going to do, and what is the process for satisfying the needs for work. And then also they need staff who inform the provider regarding acceptance and rejection of candidates, okay? And the second function, so they need somebody who can bring the guy on board and bring him up to speed and make sure that they understand that he can do the job. But then you also need a guy to tell the staff search firm that, yes, that's the guy we want. All right, and then some of the things that they do, like the company would have to do, they have to interview and rate the candidates. They have to negotiate with the candidates. They have to make the hiring decision, and then they'd have to tell the provider that they've made the decision. All right, so this is a basic example, which is in the state teamwork checklist. I would be happy to go through this checklist with you over the last, now that I'm thinking about it, I've been through this checklist a lot in the last couple of weeks. Because basically, like, when I talk to you the first time, I'm going to ask you, like, are you a manager? Do you manage people? Is that the concern that you have, managing people? Or are you working with providers? Are you working with other departments in your company? And like, okay, so let's figure out what they want and what you want, and like, how do you support each other? So now that we've kind of listed all of those ideas about this staff search firm, then tomorrow, okay, so the next 3 days, we have 3 more checklists which are kind of connected with this one. So one of them is about research. It's called state assumptions. Because like once you have that all in there, right? So you know what both of the partners are going to be doing. So then the next step is to kind of like identify, is there a need for research? Is there a need to develop assumptions in this? Like, for example, in this specific case, we mentioned that the staff search firm is going to be analyzing the job and the marketplace. And then for the company, we talked about there's a need to specify what kind of job is needed and like how he is going to satisfy the needs of the market, what kind of job he's going to do. So there's some assumptions that we need to work with. So then there's a checklist to work with assumptions. There's also another checklist called state impact, which we've talked about before. So after you've kind of developed some scenarios around what you think you might do, then this is the process for actually the decision-making process. And there's a third one, teamwork assumptions. I think in yesterday's video I also forgot. Why don't I just look it up? So I'll just go to the table of contents in the book. There's impact. There is assumptions, teamwork, and inventiveness. All right, so sometimes with an inventiveness, so we used inventiveness earlier in this playlist when we were talking about how to come up with some more ideas. All right, so maybe when you're doing the research, after you've done the research, then you want to build some scenarios. So we used the state inventiveness checklist to build those scenarios. And then after you've built those scenarios, then we talk about state impact. All right, so the next 3 days, first we're going to talk about state assumptions. Then we're going to talk about state inventiveness, and then we're going to do state impact. And that's generally the basic 4 checklists that I would use to talk to someone about developing partnerships, working with other departments, and possibly even working with your boss to really pull out and stretch all the ideas that are connected with this with this relationship, with this work world. All right, so there you go. That's today. We introduced state teamwork. We have a roadmap for the next 4 days, and I will be happy to catch you again tomorrow. Day number, I think it'll be where are we at? Day number 95. And then 96, that's the weekend. And then 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, next Friday. It's Friday today. Exactly 7 days. We're going to finish next Friday.